This is the 12th episode and we don't have a theme song, so I'm singing this silly tune. Oh yeah!
Alrighty, everybody, let's roll back in on another rollicking good episode of the Minsk and Friends Speakeasy. I am Minsk.
I am Friends.
That's Joonatan, but he likes to be called Friends at times because it helps meet our title quota. So, very good, very good. So, Joonatan, how has the spring gone for you? We're gaming centered, so gaming thoughts. What's going on with you?
It looks like it's going to be a really busy summer.
Okay, what's some highlights on your radar?
Returnal and Resident Evil.
Oh, yes, actually, yeah. Good call. That is also on mine as well, Resident Evil. Maybe we can tease. We have something planned for that, actually. So look forward to that somewhere or sometime, guys. We will try to make it work.
Hopefully closer to the release.
Yeah, but for now, we're now just waiting with bated breath for that to come up. Before we jump into the thing we're talking about today, I wanted to paint some pictures of doom and gloom here real quick. I have a bit of a monkey's paw situation here, and it's regards to the PC port of Final Fantasy VII Remake that we've been talking about for several episodes now, since I happen to not be a console owner, so I'm kind of waiting on that. And there's an unfortunate possibility that, Kingdom Hearts is finally on PC. You probably read the news on that. It's, I think, all of them, 1, 2, and 3, or some versions of them. But they are currently Epic Game Store exclusive. And on top of that, they've now announced the other, classic Square game, The World Ends With You, is also getting a PC port that is Epic Store exclusive. So it's looking a little bad. This is what I said by Monkey's Paw. It's like, it might come on PC, Final Fantasy VII Remake, but I might have to use the Epic Game Store, and I'm not looking forward to that.
I will have to say that I'm using the Epic Game Store all the time, and it's not that bad.
Okay, well, that's fair, I guess. And I should say, of course, we did our episode on Hitman 3, and that was on the Epic Game Store. So if anyone was keeping track, I believe it was in spring of 2019, where in a video I was like, I'm not going to use this Epic Game Store anymore, no. After the big, they're spying on your Steam data leak thing, that I was like, ugh. So my integrity lasted for 2 years, because for the sake of our podcast, I had to jump in and play Hitman 3 there. But I'm still a bit gritted teeth.
If it helps at all, at least Days Gone is coming to Steam. And that's a Sony exclusive. So with any luck, it might come.
Yes, and truth be told, I'm being a curmudgeon. Some of the money hatting I'm not a fan of with Epic, but for the most part, I think that's actually a good deal for developers to be like, here's just this lump sum of money for your game for timed exclusivity. That's a really developer-friendly model, so if we're being perfectly honest, I can't fault them for that. But it's still, it's a mixed bag. I'll probably jump it because I really want to play FF7, come rain or high water or whatever.
Yeah, I feel bad about being able to play it for the second time in just a month and a half when the what is it, the PS5 Final Cut, whatever they're calling it, is coming out.
Interlude Fancy Pants Yuffie Edition. That's
yes,
the one. Yeah.
Throwing adjectives and other things at it, like with the Kingdom Hearts things.
Yes, it is kind of falling into that, isn't it? Man, Advent Children did that too. They released some extended cut, and I don't remember the name they came up for it, but it wasn't very straightforward. It wasn't director's cut. It wasn't that simple.
Yeah, Nomura likes his ridiculous subtitles.
Yeah. But, it's the thing that we love at the same time, even though we think it's dumb. So it's all good. Okay, well, let's jump into the day's topic, which is a very exciting one. I know this one is one of your big favorites. We are going to be talking about Disco Elysium, which just recently got its properly called Final Cut. Speaking of weird director's cut shenanigans, that one was right there. No Nomura-isms right there. Just a nice Final Cut to tell you that this is the definitive version of this really really kind of shook the RPG scene with its innovativeness in 2019. And now it's available for, not on all consoles yet, but it's PS5 and 4 at least. So console players are getting it, and PC players are getting a free patch if you already had the original version. Let's get in on it. You are a fan of this.
Yes, and it's actually coming on the Switch this June.
Right, that's what I think. I remember it was Xbox and Switch were both going to get versions. Eventually, Sony again seemed to get some kind of dealio to get it a little earlier. That's fine, it happens. But yeah, you have been singing the praises of this game since it basically came out because, well, spoilers, it's a very, very good game, so I can totally understand you on that front. It is by our close compatriots in Estonia, actually, an Estonian studio, Zaum. Is that how it's pronounced?
I think so. And they're a bit weird because they started in Estonia, and then I think they're now located in the UK. But they're like a, what did they explained that they're like a multinational art collective that only sometimes works together. Like, they were really vague about how they actually operate, that they're not like a traditional game studio. But Zaum, because it's like Z-A-Um.
Yes. Let's go with that. That funny thing is, what you just described sounds like a group of people you might actually meet in the game. Some kind of weird beatnik game developer group with these fancy, unclear borders of how they operate, undefined. Okay, so this is an isometric RPG. So think old school Baldur's Gate and Icewind Dale, or Planescape. Planescape is the one that people always say was a influence here. Although it is not a fantasy RPG, certainly. Well, I mean, it's not medieval fantasy. There's something weird about this world, for sure.
I've been calling it Soviet punk.
That's funny, because I've coined that term as well. Normally I refer to the Stalker and the Metro games as this, because they're going for that, post-Soviet world that isn't quite what we're used to. Yeah, this one definitely isn't that wheelhouse, even though it's not quite as bang mutant shooting happy.
Or Europunk.
Yeah, Europunk is also quite good, I suppose. Don't have to focus on the Iron Curtain that much. Yeah, actually, it's interesting. The setting of this game, Revachol, it's a lot of post-Soviet countries' players. I've read their impressions, like they've really kind of felt a connection with this game, that its setting is very much like it like echoes their own experiences of like living in the heydays of the Soviet Union, or after the wall had come down, and the kind of that kind of difficult period of like rebuilding it. So this although it's a fantasy setting, it feels very rooted in near contemporary European society scene, I would say.
Yeah, and you've got a ton of references to like the French Revolution, to like it blends time and space constantly. Like, you think that it could be modern day because they talk about like a fictional version of the EU.
Right.
Then like at the same time they talk about the failed revolution, which is exclusively spoken about by the French people in the game, or the stand-ins for the French.
The French accented.
But then you have like people like Kuno and Kuno S, who seem to be Estonian and Finnish.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Oh, that's one of my favorite characters, is the little Kuno girl, because she sprinkles random Finnish insults into her dialogue. It was delightful. I hadn't even heard the term "banaanipoika" before, so I was like delighted to learn that "banana boy" is a insult you can throw at people. I assume it's not a very nice one.
It's actually something that was thrown around in the mid-2000s. I heard it used as a derogatory slur against gay people. And then at the late 2009, 2010 axle, neo-Nazis picked it up as a slur against immigrants. So I'm not surprised that Kuno S is using it.
Yes, don't say that in polite society. It's not cool. But for the purposes of this horrible shit kid character, It is delightfully annoying. So we haven't even talked about the premise of the game yet. We only described the fantastical setting. The premise is that you are a amnesiac police officer, or detective, I guess is more appropriate, and you wake up to find that you're supposed to solve a crime, a murder case, but you have had such a horrible raging bender and like three-day party all along that you have lost all memory, so you barely have any idea what you're doing.
Basic setup, and like around it is this larger storyline of not a collapsing society, but a society that doesn't care about a massive part of it. Mm-hmm. Like everything in the game is about loss and moving on, and one of your main motives, apart like the solving the crime, is the thing that gets the story going,
the driving thing of it.
Yeah, but then like very quickly it becomes also a case of, well, first finding out who you are, and then finding out who you are in italics, like that. What kind of a person were you? What kind of person are you going to be?
Yeah, and the game makes a big point of like making this divide of you don't have to be the person you once were, because all the implications are that you weren't like super great back when you were your original person. Although I have to ask, since you've played this game several times, I'm still about halfway through. Is it ever elaborated what happened in the protagonist's life that caused them to have such a like breakdown?
Yes, almost the entirety of the ending, depending on how you've played, is dedicated to that.
That's fascinating. That's really fascinating, because this choice is basically, Western RPGs love the you get to define your character idea. It's so built into like BioWare RPGs and isometric RPGs of the character you build and like their personality and their skill set and everything. And this one does the same, but you have to indeed deal with the fact that you have been a person in the past. Like there is also the more predefined thing, the more predefined character that is more common like outside of the hardcore Western RPG scene. It's an interesting choice in that as well.
And I think it's a lot more nuanced and subtle in this one, because my problem with stuff like Skyrim and Mass Effect and all the RPGs that are like, oh, choose your own character, do what you want, is that you never really do choose who you want. You have a really kind of clear set path and story of what you're going to be doing. Like in Mass Effect, it boils down to, do you want to be good cop or bad cop?
Right.
It's not any more nuanced than that. Well, in this, you can become in the very beginning, you can, become a socialist, turn into a communist, turn into a moralist, like a centrist, or you can even just totally start subscribing to racist ideology, fascism, right-wing thought. And the further you play the game, your thoughts and your style actually like fully changes the dialogue and the way people react to you, and not just on the basic of, we don't like your type here, we're gonna give you higher prices, but like to the point that you're not welcome in an entire part of the city because you're like, oh, you're this fascist cop who comes around and kicks people and punches children.
Yes, these are all options. So it's a very mature game in that sense. Not just in the kind of the far mature of edginess, but like actual mature in willing to tackle heavy themes and engage with like really dark themes and like also show the consequences. Very interesting in that front. Like I did, in fact, it was a real like actions have consequences moment. I did listen to a long sermon about batshit race theory from this horrible person. And like I told my partner, who we'll get to in a second, Kim, I was like, it's just to get past him, okay? I'm just gonna listen to him just to get through the gate. And then later on in the game, people are like, so you've been like taking in, lessons on race theory, have you? And like, no, it was just to like, get past this guy. And it's like, yeah, whatever you say, of course, yeah. We won't let word get out that you've been studying a bunch of batshit horrible race stuff. And it's like, oh boy, yeah, that would actually happen. If that was like the most realist thing in the game, like to have that encounter.
Yeah, and what really gets me about it is that, like, even when you do stuff like that, and you have your partner, who in any other game it'd be such an easy moral compass of, like, you do something and you automatically get a prompt that Kim disapproves or your partner disapproves. In this, there isn't anything like that. It's just something that happens over time. Like, if you behave like an asshole, he'll just stop sharing things with you.
Right.
Like, he won't talk about himself or give any kinds of indications that he's wanting to work this case with you.
Yeah, so basically what we alluded to, you have a partner in your crime solving. Kim Kitsuragi is the other detective sent in, and yeah, like you said, he's like a fantastic character. He's one of the best like supporting characters I've seen in any game, because he is delightfully droll in like all situations, because he's like the model cop, or at least he tries to be. He's always like analytical and like polite, and but you can tell from between the lines that he's very much only putting up with your antics so much if you play like a really bonkers police guy, and you kind of end up doing that on your first go just because you don't know how the world works and you're all confused by it. So it's really, really amazing to have such a cool like supporting character who also gets like really good like nuance. Like immediately I picked up on the fact that he's like a racing fan because he's got a fancy souped up police car. I thought that was really delightful. And later on, like, that's one of the only times he's actually got upset, when I was like reading a magazine that was like, it was like a socialist pamphlet that went on about how bad sports driving is, because it's just a marketing tool for the bourgeoisie. And I was like, hey Kim, it says here that racing is actually like it's like meant to manipulate you. And he's like, oh, that's poppycock, do you think that magazine can read your mind? No, it's a bunch of nonsense, don't believe it. And like he actually popped off that time. I thought that was really delightful.
Yeah, Kitsuragi is just one of my favorite characters as well. And I will say it now because I'm just going to repeat over and over throughout this podcast. This is one of my all-time favorite games.
Yeah.
I have played it now 5 times. I'm on my 6th playthrough at the moment.
Damn.
And it keeps on being exciting and interesting every time I play it. Because every time is different. But like with Kim, it's fascinating how he, as a character, is, like you mentioned, droll and tries to keep things close to the chest. But like, if you very early on, if you start talking to him and just asking him and pestering him with questions, you can see really quickly that he's got a bunch of things that he's hiding, and that he's a really complicated character.
Right.
Like almost everybody in the game, it's kind of fascinating because they wrote like almost 1 million lines of dialogue for the game, and everybody, even Kuno, who's this little shit stirrer who like essentially lives in the yard and does nothing but screams insults. Even he has a really subtle and nuanced character arc.
Yeah, I haven't gotten that yet, but there is like an empathy option with Kuno, which basically is figure out what's wrong with this kid. I haven't gotten it yet, but yeah, I can assume that like there is something going on more than, well, he's just an angry young teen, because, that's how it is. Like, there usually is something making a kid be that awful. Like, the 2 kids are also amazing, like I said, because they are really, really awful kids. But, I don't know. It's like a love-to-hate relationship with those 2. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think they mention it in the game at any point, but do you know what Kuno S's, the girl's, last name is?
I don't even know if her actual name is Kuno S, because that seems like a weird coincidence that it'd be like Kuno, the girl version.
Well, they call her Kuno S, and she's listed in the credits, at least, as Kuno S.
Right.
But apparently the developers revealed that her last name is Vittulainen.
Oh, I see. Okay, so that's basically Finnish for, like, fuckwad. So, yeah, okay, that's amazing. Again, yeah.
It's not in, like, any of the game, I don't think. I don't think there's, like, a moment where you learn her last name, but the developers just in an interview said that, yeah, her last name's this, and whether or not it's canon, it just made me laugh really hard.
It certainly is believable given her characterization. I can certainly accept that. Let's talk about a couple more characters that we haven't talked about yet, but they're rather integral to everything, is the voices inside your head, which is, I would say, the big kind of defining mechanic of this game. So can you kind of give us a rundown of what's going on in our amnesiac cop's head?
Yeah, because there's well, there's no like traditional skill trees. You have the basic stuff. You have like durability and strength, but they're handled in a really different kind of way. That you instead have these things like shivers and esprit de corps, which lead to your nervous system. And they govern everything in you. So you have like the game starts and you are talking to your id, you are talking to your liver, you're talking to your your spine, and every single piece of you, your inner thoughts, who all communicate and give you ideas. And they're not always good ideas. They're not always even rational or anything that relates to the case.
Like the one that's like you immediately know, it's kind of almost like a tutorial in don't trust your voices in your head, is electrochemistry, which governs your like drug tolerance and your like alcohol tolerance. He really wants you to like get on the bottle and get on the drug, and he's always just like, hey man, there's a bottle over there. It would be so sweet if you downed that bottle of alcohol right now, in like broad daylight. And like that's an immediate clue that, whoa, that's a really, really bad idea to just get in on that. So yeah.
But then interestingly, like the electrochemistry is something that you can later on, it'll tell you that you recognize this person you're talking to used to party hard in his past or in their past, and then that opens up an entire different line of discussion where you start like discussing, hey, I used to do drugs too, and I know how you feel now when we're coming off of them. So it's an interesting thing that it's not just like everybody is running for the next bottle of alcohol, that there's actually a thing that registers and understands that what it does to you in the long term.
Yeah, and all of the skills, like they give insight in like amazing, like weird situations. When you first read these skills, it just sounds like, well, okay, some of them are completely crazy and non-typical from RPGs, but there's stuff that like kind of like contrasts with like or compares to like some games might have like stealth or lockpick or athletics or something like these, and you can kind of tell some seem to be modeling that, but then they'll like talk about like how that relates to stuff you spot in the world in like really weird ways that are like weird but like really cool ways, and like provide so much insight in the world you're traveling around. These facets of your mind, I guess is how to put it.
Yeah, my absolute favorite one is shivers. And that in the game is the sensation you have in real life, where like a smell or a sound or like any kind of a thing will trigger the electrochemical thing in your head, where you'll have a nostalgic flashback to something. Like you'll smell something that reminds you of how your grandma's house used to smell, or how your cottage used to smell you when you were a kid, or a certain place you liked. And the shivers skill amplifies that in the game. So your character will be like wandering the street and like suddenly catch a whiff of the ocean air coming in from the harbor, and they'll start having this long reminiscence and this kind of sensation of what is happening, or what they imagine or what they remember. It's really unclear what it is, the memory, or is it a figment of your imagination. And they'll just start going through this storyline of like somewhere in the city, somebody is, by the window, quietly crying because they're remembering something else. And you have this kind of massive connection to the city around you. And it's unlike anything I've ever seen in a game before.
Yeah, it's really magical. It's like you feel the pulse of the city to the point that you get kind of clairvoyant in a way as you're like reading what's going on in the world, like in ways that you couldn't possibly actually, perceive normally, but still, like you unlock it somehow. It's kind of magical.
And it's actually a really great way to make the world matter, because it's not a huge city or a huge game as an area. Mm-hmm. You have only this small part of Revachol that's a couple of blocks of area. Right. And then you later on get a little bit more to that when you go down to the beach. But other than that, it's really tight. But because of the shivers and because of the understanding and making the city into a living, breathing character, it feels really massive. And you can understand why, for the people who live in that part of the city, who never leave that part of the city, why it's their entire world. and the world building in that, it makes it feel much more alive and much more real than like in any other game where they have a huge world map of like 100 kilometers.
Yeah, it's I like I said, I haven't finished my playthrough yet. Once again, I'm giving a review a little early, but whatevs. Yeah, I feel like I've traversed so little in that town so far. I've just kind of dicked around in the couple of buildings where you start at and the harbor, but yeah, it's like an image has formed of the whole city already in a way. That's like incredibly good writing on that front.
Yeah, and they talked about in like an early interview that it was meant to be that in their initial plans that this was supposed to be the entire island of Martinez. Like almost most of Revachol would have been a part of the story. And that was when they were still like, oh, we're going to make, the biggest RPG ever made. And then they realized, oh, crap, even this tiny little place, we're going to have 40, 60 hours of playthrough.
Yeah.
And millions of lines of dialogue that maybe we'll just cut it down to this and then do a sequel later on.
Seems like the smart thing to do, yes, because the density of content is really daunting. Daunting, I might even say, if you're not ready for it in just this tiny area that you're adventuring in this game. Pretty fascinating on that front. I would say, with the skills that talk in your head, they remind me of the classic trope of the little angel and devil sitting on your shoulders, like kind of giving you different advice. Like you see that in cartoons so much, but never to this scale. Like, that's what really impresses me. And the writing that had to go, speaking of the writing, they had to take into account so many variables on so many skills applying in different situations and affecting how talking to people or interacting with the world go. I don't know how they did it. It's insane.
And even more insane that then now in the final cut, every single line of dialogue is voiced.
Yeah, like so much. Whoever, especially the narrator who voices, because all of your inner voices are by the same man, this jazz singer with a really beautiful voice. He's a delight to listen to. They really got the right guy for that. His life must have been hell for like a few months, given how much dialogue he had to record. It's nuts. I remember back in the day when fully voiced RPG started to first be a thing, around Oblivion, around those times. Oblivion was the first big one. There was a lot of critique that the writing for games would go down because you just couldn't have that much voiced dialogue in a game. Like, you couldn't voice it all, so you'd have to cut down on the amount of dialogue, and that would impact the writing of the game. So it's insane now, 15 years later, that this game feels denser than, or at least as dense as that 90s era of isometric RPGs, and like basically everything is voiced. Like maybe a couple of moments for some reason haven't had the voice on them, like a couple of lines. I don't know why. Maybe an oversight or just.
It seems to be that there's like a bug going around in the game that some of the lines get cut at times, which is it happens. But like another thing that I'm glad you mentioned the kind of like dumbing down or making worse dialogue in them, because this will have like really long moments where they just go off on tangent and have like an entire discussion about the tenets of National Socialism or the how corporatism affects the lives on a microeconomy level, and it's just stuff that doesn't have anything to do with the main plot that most games would exercise like immediately. And then this one embraces wholeheartedly, where you just have these discussions and you can have this kind of idea of where every character comes from, like a normal character who will say that they don't understand it, but they'll give their opinion in their words. And then you'll go to another part of town where a rich person who comes from a higher socioeconomic standard will then talk really like a flowery language about this whole thing. And I think it's incredible that not only have they nailed the tone, but they've managed to nail the nuance of who you're talking to and how and where you're talking to them. It's just I don't know. Like you said, I don't know how they pulled it off.
Exactly. This seems like like you need like a team of writers to make all of this, but this was a pretty small studio when they first did it, as far as I'm aware, so they must have had insane reservoirs of passion for this.
Yeah, I think they had I think it's something like 3 or 4 writers I think they had, which is still insane because someone like, I think Skyrim had like 5 to 10, and that's like half of what this is.
Yeah. It's but I guess that just shows, like, because there's a long story about the brainchild, or not, sorry, this is the brainchild of a guy called Robert Kurwitz. He's kind of the driving thing behind this all. He's had like a long and storied history that I read about of him trying to make this thing work. Like, this started as a tabletop RPG for him originally, which probably explains the, isometric RPG. I think at one point he tried to like write a book of this, but like that wasn't just like, that didn't like really pick up. It didn't seem to work out writing a book for him. And I don't know why, but like somehow I think he was recommended by somebody that this could work as a game, which to me is so not the logical progression of, well, I can't get this book written. I know, I'll just make an entire game around it. That seems very, very the opposite of what would happen, but it worked. Amazing.
And now I'm a little concerned because they're making a TV show or a movie about this.
Ooh, okay.
And it's being produced by the same guys who made the Sonic the Hedgehog movie.
Okay,
Not the studio I thought would be making it.
No, yeah, I mean, they'll have to work on the color palette a little bit, make it maybe a little less bright and cheery.
Yeah, I mean, I want it to turn out good, and I would essentially go and serve coffee on that production just to be a part of it, because it's to say that this thing has been living in my mind rent-free would be a understatement, because since 2019 when it came out, it's everything on an artistic level. What I've been doing has been, how can I get myself to this level of storytelling as this is? And it annoys me that Kurwitz is our age, and that he
you can't think like that.
And that he wrote like initially drafts of this for his tabletop RPGs like 10 years ago.
Well, that's sometimes it takes long. Don't worry about it. It'll turn out well.
But yeah, it's an amazing achievement. But we should probably talk about the game mechanics themselves, because
it's about time we roll into that.
Yeah, because they're really different as well for what is on the surface a traditional RPG.
Yeah, I mean, let's go. Just the base mechanics are basically an iteration of, if you've played the D20 system of Dungeons and Dragons. How you use skills is exactly the same. Is you try to beat a certain value with a dice roll, and your skills modify the roll along with other modifiers you might get from equipment or, things you've done in the world to, assist or make it more difficult to check. So on the paper, nothing like crazy there. You're rolling 2d6 rather than a d20, but it's a simple mechanic. But they are, of course, again, it's all those skills in your head. So 20 different skills you're using that are not very typical, and they have interesting applications there as well. And I really like they got a really novel system for retrying checks. You have some checks you can't retry, and those are very clearly marked as red checks in the game's terms. Those you just get one shot at. But the white checks are the ones which can be retried. And it's kind of interesting. You can retry them once you invest more points in that skill. So I think that's a fun way of not just spamming the same skill over and over to take a 20 in, again, D&D terms. But it also kind of guides you into, if you really want something done, then that's kind of motivation to put points into that, even more so then.
But then also, it's not just putting the points in the skill. It also sometimes will unlock the attempt by if you talk to another person, and that person can give you an idea of how to look at the problem differently, or remind you of something different that happened. And then you'll be like, hey, this other thing I was doing. And then you can go back and try the thing again. It's very organic in how it's handled. And then multiple problems will sometimes have multiple different attempts that you can do. There's a scenario where you have to take a body down from a tree.
Yes.
And then that can look at either your stamina or your mental fortitude or your emotional well-being. And all of those can be tried to get it down from the tree. and each of them plays to how you want to play the game.
Yeah, it is that whole choose your character thing, which really, really works here. It's really crazy on that front. I had to take the long way and go hire some help from the harbor to get that body down, but I understand that if you are a really good crack shot, you can try and shoot the thing down, which I did not try. I did not invest points in that, but...
I did, and I may have, on one of my tries, accidentally shot a child.
Oh no! This is exactly why I was like, no, I'm not even gonna try this check. This can only end badly unloading a weapon in a residential area for something that frivolous.
Yeah, the stuff in this goes from 0 to 100 really quickly if you let it.
Yeah, it's
like it just gets insanely demented if you play it that way.
Now, the Dwarf Fortress community says losing is fun, and it definitely can be in this one, the way the things sometimes balloon outwards. Sometimes succeeding is fun. I interrupted a game of petanque by being like, check out my cool shot put skills, and I chucked their petanque ball into the ocean with my really lucky rolling of my physical fortitude. And they were just like, what the hell did you just do, you damn idiot? And I'm like, oops.
And it's great because you can tell your brain in that scenario, it's like, maybe I should learn the rules first. Or like, just watch what they're doing, and then your brain's just like, no, do it. You can do it. You are a sporting miracle.
Yeah, even though you're like a washed up alcoholic, but still.
Yeah.
My mind doesn't think that.
Yeah, because your mind can tell you that you're like a superstar or like a legendary rock figure of some kind, and it's really amazing to watch how self-deluded you can get in the game as everybody else reacts to you like, oh no, you're not. You smell like a dead raccoon and you look even worse. Go have a bath or something. But yet there's another example would be that even the stamina failures are funny because like you can build your character to be basically anything. So my initial, like way back in 2019, my initial reaction was, I'm gonna build a super emotionally aware character who's, decent with his visual calculus. He can kind of figure out how things are happening and why.
Yeah.
But he's feeble. He's just like his other fortitudes, like mental fortitude and his physical fortitude are terrible. So then the very first thing in the game, your very first task is to get dressed. Like a simple enough task. You're hungover, you have to get your clothes.
Yeah, which is quite the mood setter, by the way, that's the first thing you have to do. The Herculean task of getting yourself dressed.
Right, and the first thing you see is your tie on a shitty little fan, overhead, and it's just like rickety, and it's not even properly, fastened. And then I, of course, realized I'm going to try and get my tie off of the thing. And I reached for it, and my character had a heart attack and promptly keeled over and died.
That's hilarious.
And the game just ends with this newspaper clipping of, drunk hobo cop found in shitty hotel room. The game ended there. It's maybe a 5-minute window that I managed to play it.
Fantastic. Yeah, see, that's not even what you expect, which is that the fan falls down on your head and kills you. It's like even sadder somehow.
Yeah, and then when you're dying, your mind and body just like explain to you, and it's like, yeah, it's we're going. This is it. And you can try and talk your way out of it, and they're just like, oh no, just no thoughts, just sleep.
So speaking of these fail states, let's talk really quick about the combat system in this game. I'd say it's quite interesting because it's
not there.
Yeah, nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's not like this is a game without conflict. We're not saying that, but there is no mechanics really there isn't any game elements for the conflict or the violence in it. They are all skill checks as well, basically.
Yeah, and even those moments are like, the entire world seems to be like, why would you want violence?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it actively asks you, like, if you've ever been in a fight, you wouldn't want to pick another one again.
Yeah. So we talk about games that try to be anti-violence. This one's pretty high on the actual works out the message front of it.
Yeah, and I think it's because a lot of the game takes place in a post-revolution town where you can still see the bullet holes in the walls from where the firing squads executed people, and you can see the craters on the ground where they shelled the place, and everything about the city is this living reminder, a daily reminder of what happened. So nobody wants to start new shit.
Yeah, that totally checks out. And when you first described this to me like a while ago, that like, oh yeah, there's no actual combat in this, I was certainly piqued my curiosity, and my gut reaction is kind of like an RPG without any combat mechanics. Like, what the heck? But you know, they compare this to Planescape, and when I think back to Planescape, none of the moments that I remember really standing out in that were any of the combat in it. Like, maybe only one, fighting the cranium rats, because they have a really cool mechanic where they're smarter the more there are, and they unlock psychic powers. So as you thin the herd, they start losing their abilities. That's kind of cool. But apart from that, what I remember from Planescape is all the weird characters and all the quirky dialogue and the strange interactions you'd have with that. And this is going for that, this game as well. So I think that was the right choice for them to be like, no, let's not like unnecessarily like complicate the actual experience of the interacting with this world. That's the main experience here. I think it was really smart of them to make that probably a little difficult decision to like leave out the combat from it entirely.
Yeah, it raises the question of like, because it challenges the players to also think about it on a level that's not a gaming kind of level. You don't think about the meta of it. So even though there is like a quick save and quick load function that you can, if you want to recheck, do the checks again and all that, the game doesn't punish you for failure. So you don't have this feeling that you have to violently push your way through everything. And you can build a violent character. You can build somebody who's a tough, angry person with very little, emotional or mental grace.
Yeah.
But that it opens up different doors, because then the kind of people who in this world react to violence positively or react as, this is our kind of person, they'll of course help you. But then everybody else will shun you because they don't want you a part of that society. And then like the further you play and the more you play and then the more times you play when you go through the game again, there are clear moments where you can see, if you want to look at it like as a game, you can see the moments where it's like where there's the turning points where you can see that like this choice will matter down the line. But they're so well hidden that I think when I've played it now multiple times, I can't see the seams that clearly as clear with other games. Whereas in like with Fallout, which I do love, like Fallout 1 and 2, and we've talked about that when we talked about Wasteland. Those have very clear moments where you can tell that this kind of an option will lead to a fight encounter. So you kind of prepare yourself mentally already to build the dialogue towards either just, actually avoiding it to or going into the fight. So that already, it kind of guides you as a player, your expectations. But here, where there's no fights and no combat, you actually have to engage with the dialogue and engage what is being said and what the context of the whole discussion is. So even with the horrible racist who's telling you about his race theory, there is a way to violently get through that scenario. But it's just what it then leads to opens up so many more questions and so much more weirdness that it's kind of wonderfully bizarre to see that they have managed to create a game that constantly challenges you as a player to kind of ask yourself, why would I even want a fight in this point?
Some real Undertale vibes on that front of like kind of questioning what even is the point of doing this. That's so standard in video games usually. I will say, I guess this is kind of a negative, but it's more of a subjective thing, that as captivating as it is, of course, the pace of the game is quite slow as you have all these long, meaningful conversations with people. And I'm basically saying that, too much of a good thing here. And, it's not too much for me, not yet anyway. I certainly enjoy it. But I think that is a caveat to say to people that it is indeed, it's not it's not heart pounding in that sense. This game, it really is a slow burn of a game. It's even slower than like adventure games, which this game kind of reminds me from, because adventure games don't have this much dialogue and exposition in them. So that's like, and I don't want to be like, that's why I'm like saying like, I'm trying to be neutral here, because I don't want to say that the people who would find this too slow, like that's a problem. Like, of course, if you like more actiony games, that's fair, but be aware that this isn't going to cater to that, this game.
I've said it in like every review I've done of this so far, that it's not for everyone. And that's okay. I'm really glad that something unique like this has been made.
Yeah.
And of course, I would want everyone to play it, because it is so different. But in the same way, and there's always the risk of sounding pretentious when you say it. In a certain way, I like it that it's a little inaccessible, because it means that when you actually put your time into it and you let it kind of wash over you, that it does become more rewarding. And the deliberate pacing it reminds me of some of my favorite books or TV shows, which build up to a singular moment, which on its own would not be as impactful. But when you know what it's been building up to, and you get the sense that even though the game takes place over like just a few days, it does feel that emotionally you go through multiple decades of this character's life, because you have to do so much introspection.
Yeah.
They talk a lot about in the developers as their influences, this book called Germinal, which is a lot to do with French history, working class history, and it takes place over a long period of time.
Okay.
And I read this in high school. I don't remember much about it, but I remember.
You actually read it. That's cool.
Yeah, but I remember that it back at least then it made an impression because it was so meticulous in how it depicts things, and I wasn't emotionally prepared at the time with it to read that kind of stuff. I would like to go back now to read it, because I think over the years I've started to enjoy a lot more with this kind of lingering storytelling, where it's just we take time to just talk about, on this street, on this time, this person did a thing, and that thing was very sad. And then, it doesn't have much to do except build the story. And this does the same thing. But yeah, like you mentioned, it's like if you go in expecting a traditional RPG or a traditional story, even if it's a cop thriller, and even the advertising for this says that it's a murder mystery.
Yeah.
And I think that's a little, it's a little reductive, and you kind of have to be reductive because it's advertising.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you just go for the murder mystery, you're going to miss out on so much of the stuff that makes it special.
Yeah, like all the interactions we've been talking about outside. Something as simple as reading a magazine about cockatoos, which I found very rewarding, I have to say.
Did you go help the lady who's looking for the strange cryptids?
Well, yes, I've agreed to help find her husband, but I haven't really gotten started on that. But that was my only time I was like, oh, Kim. Because Kim was like, we don't have time to talk about cryptids. Just, okay, I will let you listen to only one. And I was like, oh, I want to hear about all these cryptids. Well, that was my one moment where I was like, darn it, Kim. Why do you have to be such a buzzkill?
Yeah, it's but that's another thing. That's one of those things that I'm happy that they did, because any other game would be like, this is a meaningless sub-quest. You'll get it done in about 5 minutes or something. But I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I will tell you that storyline will keep going until the very end of the game.
Oh, that's exciting. Yeah,
right.
Nice.
It's so ridiculous that it goes and it is there, but it becomes a thing. And it's just I'm so glad that they do something like that.
Super cool. Well, one other complaint I can actually say, and this one actually is a little bit more, I have a problem with this, is it's a very tiny thing. Overall, I love this game as well. It's super cool. But I am bothered by just a one tiny gameplay thing, that is the completed quest logs are really, there is none, and it makes it very hard to keep track of all the facts. Because there's so much going on if you engage with all the world and all the characters. There's so much going on that I have a little bit of trouble remembering all the stuff I've learned from people. And in other games, there would be a nice little summation in your completed tasks log. Summation of what you learned and what happened. or some kind of like diary system or something, and there doesn't seem to really be anyone. I guess it's to engage that you really pay attention to the game, so I guess I can understand on that front that it forces you to really, really, really engage and like keep up with it. But it's a bit of a chore at times, I think, to handle all of that stuff going on.
Yeah, and that kind of goes to the whole hand-holding thing, that they are trying to make it into like a novel, that you're reading it, you pay attention, but even like really elaborate books have glossaries in the end, or some kind of an encyclopedia. So I agree with you there.
Or you can flip back in the book to have a look.
Yeah, and there are moments where you can like talk to Kim and he'll remind you about stuff.
Yeah, the big details, of course.
Yeah, but like other than that, yeah, I agree that it's there. It never bothered me in a sense, because every time I've really sat down to play this, I've usually played it through in a couple of days.
Right.
That I've just sat down and just completely devoured it.
Yeah.
And I think that's been rewarding in its own way. But I would imagine that if I stopped playing and for like a month and came back and started again, I would be completely lost, because I would just not remember which paths I've taken or what people I've spoken to.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do get that. That is a valid thing, that it could be a little bit more user friendly.
But again, since the game really is designed very well to work, even if you like screw up on like prompts and stuff, I haven't felt like I'm stuck yet. There's very few moments of that. The most is that basically I just had to wander somewhere I haven't been yet, and something new has popped up there. So not a big deal, but like I said, it's been a problem at times where I'll meet a character and I'll be like, hey, you're that character the other character mentioned. And I'm like, I don't even remember who the other character is. What the heck? No. Well, we should be wrapping up pretty soon, but we haven't talked too much about the presentation, just the more themes and world. Let's talk simply about how beautiful this is. Boy, it's nice. Last episode, Bravely Default, I was saying about how I miss that kind of painterly, really handcrafted look of a world. Guess what's really good for that is an isometric RPG in a tiny little world, so the whole thing looks like one beautiful oil painting you're walking through. It's nuts.
Yeah, I was really happy when I started playing it the first time, because I looked at the initial art for the game and I was like, this looks really familiar. And then the developers came and said that, yeah, we took a lot of influences from Ilya Repin and Jenny Saville. And I was like, well, Repin is one of my favorite painters.
Oh, nice.
So, of course, then I started looking into the references, and there's so much that they've taken from him.
Interesting.
Even more so from Jenny Saville, who just does really incredible, almost impressionist kind of paintings. But if you look at her stuff and then compare it to, the character portraits in the game, they could be her work.
Fascinating.
But yeah, it's just one of the most beautiful games that there is, because every part of the city feels emotionally honest and real. You can look at that stuff and go oh, I've been on a street like this, because it's painted from very accurate representations of Europe. And these kind of almost like memories of what different places have been to people. You turn the corner and it looks like Estonia, Tallinn's old town, and then you turn another corner and it's like Prague.
Yeah. Or I had huge Poland, Gdansk kind of vibes from some of the industrial areas. Really, and all the industrialist or union themes in this immediately put my mind in that setting.
Right, and it lends to that dreamlike quality. And also with the art and working together is the music, which is really fantastic. It's a British band called, what was it, British Sea Power, I think is the name.
I think that was the name. Something Sea Power.
Yeah. And just the way that it's been composed, and how much of it there is, and how accurate, it changes throughout the day. The time of day, the music changes from this kind of really kind of mournful, sad horn section to really gentle, almost, heart-wrenching kind of piano, depending on the area where you are.
Yeah. Kind of more oppressive when you go into the harbor with its giant stacks of container crates. It becomes a little more darker, kind of industrial. Yeah, it works really well. I have to say this one, because it's so ambient, there's nothing that's super jumped out for me, but it serves its purpose very well, the music.
Yeah, I really love the theme or the main music that you hear in Riva Shoal.
When you step out of the hotel, the Whirling Rags hotel, and it just starts out in that plaza.
Yeah, the sad French horn. That is just one of my favorites, and I listen to that on like just normally when I'm walking around.
Yeah, it really like evokes lost glory in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, in summation, yeah, well, I think you've said it already plenty of times. You think this game is the absolute bomb, right?
Yep. I can't say enough good things about it. I could spend hours and hours talking about the multiple themes and the meanings behind them, the references, the allusions that they do. But I think it's best not to spoil any further. Like, we've only spoken about very like a small fraction of it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best way to go into it. So yeah, I think everyone should play it. I don't think everyone is going to like it, but I do think everyone should give it a shot. Like, and especially now that it's going to be on all the consoles and it's on PC, and the final cut is really good. The voice acting makes it, like you're having on top of the game, like you have an audiobook that you're enjoying.
Exactly.
So yeah, I do think that if you like games, if you like good stories, if you like True Detective or, good murder mysteries, then yeah, play it.
A lot of that to get from here, indeed. I agree. I don't know, I'm maybe a little bit on a lower tier than you, but it is super engaging. Like, I have enjoyed all of my time in it so far, absolutely. It is so different, the writing in this game, from anything, very contemporary in games at the moment. You have to go into like really like indie games that go for like really esoteric stuff to approach the kind of themes in other games that this one goes into. So it's such a unique beast in its setting and the way it handles itself that I definitely, I agree. This is absolutely worth checking out. It is maybe a little against what a lot of people expect from a game, especially when we keep saying RPG, while it's like half RPG, half adventure game, and that might come out of the left bush even with our description for a lot of people. But I don't know, at least I got a lot out of it, and I was very impressed with the work that's been put into this world that you explore in this game.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so as a closing thought, I actually thought of this just now because we were talking, you mentioned this possible TV series. I thought it'd be fun, just a really quick our dream director thing. Who would you put to TV show or movie? Who would you think could, do this? Director, producer, writer, you want to throw some names?
Dream scenario, of course I would be working on it.
Oh, okay, of course.
But
nice.
Yeah, because this would be the dream thing to adapt, because it is so dense and it could do anything.
I'll allow it.
But there's a lot of really good people who could make really different kinds of stories about this, and I think that's what makes it so fascinating.
Right.
You could do almost any type of game. Like, David Fincher would make something really dark about this.
Oh my god, that'd be so messed up.
But I think he would... I don't know if he would manage to do... then again, his film Benjamin Button is one of my favorite films from him.
Yeah, that's his film.
Yeah, and I loved that movie.
Yeah.
And I think that has the kind of same melancholiness as this does. And I think that could work. And I worry that because Benjamin Button failed so hard at the box office, and it wasn't critically acclaimed either, that I think that he doesn't want to go back to something like that. And I'm worried that it would be too dark, and it would miss out on the humor that this does have, it does have a lot of humor in it.
Yeah.
The Coen brothers might make something really funny out of it.
Yeah, I can see that, yes.
But I think a left-wing thing would be interesting to see someone like Greta Gerwig come and mess with it, because she did such an amazing work with Little Women, adapting it and doing the multiple timelines and the unreliable narrator thing. I think she could really handle this kind of thing where it is constantly uncertain of where you are in time, where you are emotionally.
Oh, yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
And then if you really want to dream, it would be really cool to see someone like Francis Ford Coppola come out of retirement and just, pull out all the stops that he pulled out when he made like Rumblefish or Dracula, where it's like lots of practical effects and building all that stuff. Especially since Prague and Eastern Europe have really amazing film stages where they like build. There's a movie that they built some years ago. It's 15 years now, but called The City of Ember, where they built an entire steampunk city into the set, and it was like multiple blocks of the steampunk city.
Is it still there?
No, it's gone after they finished it. But it's a really great movie. Nobody really watched it, but it's really good.
Interesting.
And something like that, like if you could get a director with vision like that, and just have them go and make it. But I think it would also be interesting to see if somebody made an animation out of this.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like I'm really sad someone like Takeshi Kon is no longer with us, because like his stuff would be amazing for this, because he would be able to do the trippy psychedelic portions like nobody's business.
Yeah. Oh, wow, there's so many like Central European or like French animation movies. Like any one of those people would, of course, be a perfect fit for this, I think.
Yeah, and even it would be fun to see what would someone like Roy Andersson or even Aki Kaurismäki would do with something like this.
That's a good pick, yeah.
Because there is a kind of really po-faced, dour humor to this.
I agree, yeah, that's a really good choice. I really like that. I wanted to lean on the whimsy a little bit more myself, so I'll toss a couple more names here to the match. Actually, they're going to have to help me here. I completely blacked out on the name, but the Grand Budapest Hotel's director,
Wes Anderson. I was thinking of that too. Yeah,
he would like really get that kind of dreamy whimsiness of this. Like it would be a little bit more lighthearted, I think, his take. But I'd really like to see that.
Well, Budapest Hotel is already pretty close to the melancholiness of this.
I know exactly. That's what I like. That's what I zeroed in on now that I thought about this topic. But the other one, if we wanted to make like the most accessible to the public, more standard movie, but like still like a really good take on this, I think Guy Ritchie is the guy to do it.
Oh, maybe.
Because his take on Sherlock Holmes and Watson is, I think that is. I see that in the main character, and Kim Kitsuragi in this. It's just that this guy is even more of a mess than Sherlock Holmes is in his movies. So
maybe I think he's a little too hyperactive for this.
I know. That's why I'm saying like this would be like the action version of Disco Elysium, but like just as like an oddball to throw out real quick. I think you could do something with him.
I would say that we should try also Dexter Fletcher.
What did he do again? Sorry?
Dexter Fletcher is the guy who's now directing Sherlock Holmes 3. He used to be a British actor. Started doing directing a lot. He's directed mostly like biopics and musicals. He did Eddie the Eagle, and then he did the Elton John film.
Okay.
But he has an incredible visual sense, because he worked a lot with Guy Ritchie. And he got handed the Sherlock thing from Ritchie to take over, because Guy Ritchie's busy with other films now.
Right.
So I think he could be able to balance the Guy Ritchie visuals, but also bring that same sly humor into it.
And tone down the two-fistedness, I guess.
Yeah, because I think he would understand it, but he would then also understand the visuals of it. So yeah, if anybody of those people are absolutely listening to this podcast,
yeah, come on, guys.
Yeah, get Dexter Fletcher on the phone.
Yeah. Good idea. I like that call. I will have to check out his stuff then a little more. There's a good tip on that front as well. Well, that was actually a really productive conversation we just had there. I didn't expect it to be such a good run on various people, but it turned out pretty well. I'm pretty happy with that. I guess we'll be closing out here. It has been a pleasure again, Joonatan.
Yeah, always a pleasure.
Well, let's go through our usual plugs here. What have you got shaking?
Right now, I am just starting to work on Returnal, which is the big Housemarque Finnish first-party launch title that is considered to be the first big PlayStation 5 game. Because even though the PlayStation 5 has been out almost now, 8 months, despite that nobody gets their hands on it.
Yes.
There hasn't been any true unique launch titles for it.
Yeah, Miles Morales is the closest one, but even that one, that was on PS4 as well, I think. So
that was a PS4 title, and so is Horizon. The new Horizon game has been made for PS4.
Right.
But this one has been built from the ground up exclusively for the PS5. Mm-hmm. And it looks really great. I can't wait to get my hands on it. I should be able to get a review out, hopefully by the release date, which is the 30th of this month. And other than that, I am working hard on getting everything ready for the Resident Evil stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Because that is a big one. That's going to be one of the big games of the year. It's going to be one of the big games of the summer. I already played the first hour of it.
Ooh, nice.
And I can confirm that it's going to rock everybody's socks off who likes these kind of games.
Nice.
I think they finally nailed the perfect formula of how to balance action and the survival horror.
Oh, sweet. Amazing. I'm looking looking forward to that, and also your take on it. I'm so interested. I don't know, have you played a lot of Resident Evil in the past?
I think we talked about this previously, really briefly. I played a little bit of 7, but I wasn't a fan of 7. And I realized I'm in the minority here.
Yeah.
I really loved the Part 2 remake.
Yeah.
I thought that was a great way to revitalize the old game. Mm-hmm. And other than that, it's been kind of touch and go. I like some of them. I really liked Part 4, but I don't think it's aged well.
Okay.
I surprisingly liked, I think, Part 6, which is the one that seems to be dividing most audiences.
It is. It's a tough sell for a lot of people.
Yeah, I liked it because that was the one where they really said, you know what, fuck it, we're gonna just do crazy stuff.
I guess if you approach it like that, you can get stuff out of it. Yeah, I will definitely say that.
Yeah, and then the one they were, I think it was 5, where they were in Africa.
Yeah.
That was okay. I played that with a friend in a co-op, and that made it better.
Absolutely. That's the real problem with those games, is they're leaning so hard on you just, enjoying it, playing with co-op, that they're kind of, drop the ball on a little bit on the actual gameplay side, honestly, is my take.
Yeah. But like all the other side stuff that they've done, like Code Veronica, everything like that, I've kind of missed out on because I can't keep up with the lore. Mm-hmm. It's too much.
Okay.
But this one feels like a mix between 7 and 4, which I think is a perfect balance.
Yeah.
And it's based off the first hour. It's going to be really something special if they manage to keep it up.
I'm a longtime fan of the series. I've consumed, either played or watched almost all of the mainline ones. I can't say, like I said, that I like all of them, but I definitely am a big-ass fan, so I'm, of course, looking forward to this, and that's why I really want to see how, also what your take on it is going to be. I'm very interested. Okay, as for myself, a lot of games changing on my channel. We have wrapped up our... Actually, it'll be over by the time this episode comes out. Our Halo series will be done.
Woo!
It was really good fun. We got it all recorded a long time ago, and I think it turned out well. And it's going to be more of me playing myself after that. I really liked a couple of games coming after that, and Atelier Verona will be ending soon as well. I enjoyed it through and through. I'm curious again what people thought. Let me know if this slower pace RPG clicked with anybody out there. I would love to hear about that. But yeah, I think great games on the future on my channel, and possibly a little bit of us working together on something. But yeah, it's been a pleasure. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I certainly enjoyed it. I assume you enjoyed it as well.
Yes, great fun as always.
So until next time, catch you around and have fun, guys. Bye-bye!
So long.